Further research took us to a picturesque castle on the coast of Cornwall, where Donald Tosh, one-time script editor of Doctor Who, now acts as curator. He told us how he first met George Markstein.
I first met George at a dinner party. Unfortunately, I can't remember whose, but we got talking. He knew who I was, because I'd been doing a fair bit of editing for television myself over the years. And he told me about The Prisoner, which was a wonderful idea and absolutely fascinating, and invited me to have ideas for it. And to get back in touch with him. So I duly did. When I had some ideas, I invited George to dinner, because George liked to discuss over a meal. And we discussed several ideas, but one in particular. My idea involved Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, a French writer-philosopher who disappeared in the 1940s over the desert. He was a flyer. In fact, he'd been one of the early French RAF army pilots, and was never discovered, and nobody ever knew what happened to him. And so I, as it were, planted him in the village, where, of course, he met the prisoner. Saint-Exupéry was a writer of some fame, because apart from his philosophic writings, he also wrote a very famous short book at the time called The Little Prince, which many people sort of believed in. Anyway, I used Saint-Exupéry as a crippled character. He was in a wheelchair when the prisoner met him, and the prisoner recognizes him. As far as I can recall, the story was that the prisoner tries to use Saint-Exupéry's knowledge of flying and gliding and everything else to build some sort of contraption through which he intended to fly or glide off the island. But I can't remember the details, except that I think we used the great white balloon thing to eventually destroy the glider. But most of the story, I'm afraid, has got lost in the mists of my mind. I wrote a few pages of dialogue, a few scenes of dialogue, and a general outline, and presented the whole thing as a sort of rather fuller than usual treatment to George. We discussed the program in his office, the episode in his office one time, and he said then that before going any further, he had to discuss it, obviously with Pat McGowan and probably other people, but not to be insulted if I didn't get asked to go further, because although he liked the story, they might not. And they either didn't, or nobody, was particularly struck with it, because I heard no more, but I wasn't insulted. Sadly, I haven't got any copy of either the script or treatment, that as much as I produced. And had I known the program was going to become quite such a cult and to last this long, I suppose I would have saved it. But sadly, I can't even remember the title I gave it. I'm bound to have given it a working title. I always do. But unfortunately, I really cannot remember what it was called. Probably a corruption of one of Saint-Exupéry's other books, but nothing leaps to mind.